Hello people of YouTube, Rich from PCGamesN here, and I'm very excited to be joined once again by Jake Solomon.
Yes, long time no see, huh?
Long time no see. It's been a whole, what, 2 weeks?
It's been 2 weeks.
Since E3.
The worst 2 weeks of my life.
Every minute of torture. If you missed our E3 interview, there should be a card coming up on screen at some point now, where you can check it out. Please do that, because we'll be going into a little bit more depth this time round about the new XCOM 2 expansion, War of the Chosen. Which we've just played.
Yes.
And it went very well.
Together.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Let's dig in with the new factions then.
Sure.
We got introduced to 2 of them. We hear that we'll win their allegiance by fighting the Chosen that they oppose.
That's right.
Are there any other methods for doing that?
Yeah, I mean, basically, first you get to contact them, or you'll get a mission to meet them, and then you'll get access to their soldier. And once you have that, then this opens up this whole new system of covert actions, which is away missions that you send your soldiers out on. And so the only way to raise your influence is through those covert actions, going after the Chosen. And so that's the way you raise their influence, which gives you access to more and more toys. But you get the access to the soldiers right away.
Right, and do those allegiances conflict? So is there a way to win over all of the factions in a playthrough? You
can, but it's difficult. It's going to take a lot of time, because you're going to have to do that. You would have to go after each of the 3 Chosen, and the Chosen system's a little more organic. So the idea is that you don't have to go after the Chosen to win the game. Obviously, it's going to be recommended, because they get extremely difficult if you leave them alone and they're allowed to level up and get stronger and stronger. Then it's really difficult. And so you're going to have to pick and choose what Chosen you go after. But if you wanted to go after all 3 of them, you probably could delay the game long enough, but it wouldn't be easy to do.
Okay, yeah, and we saw the Chosen in the playthrough, and it was quite powerful even early on.
Yeah.
Could you sketch out a few sort of different ways, 2 different routes that a Chosen's abilities might evolve down over the course of a game?
Yeah, I think that, so the idea is that they all have pools of strengths and weaknesses that they can pull from. And then they have abilities that they add over time as they get stronger. So for example, let's say the assassin, she's all about stealth and all about her blades. And then she has which you saw in person, she has a sort of mass attack called Harbor Wave, where she sends a wave of psionic energies at your soldiers that devastates them.
Yeah, that was great fun.
She also has the ability to blind your troops, so she can throw a blinding grenade, so she can throw it, and any unit within that radius, their sight radius gets shrunk to like 1 tile, and so they can't see anything. So the fact that she's concealed, these units can't see anything, it makes her like doubly dangerous. But they also add the strengths, and so there are a lot of strengths, like we saw today when we faced her. The assassin had Blast Shield, which made her immune to explosives. She had Shadow Step, which meant that she was immune to Overwatch. And so those 2 tactics, which are very common tactics in XCOM, of course, go right out the window. All of a sudden, you can't use explosive against her. You can't use Overwatch. She can be immune to concealment. She can be immune to melee attacks. She can be immune to really powerful tactics in XCOM. And how she gains those is random. So she may gain 1 strength, she may gain another. The other Chosen have gained their own entirely different strengths. And so what happens is that every time you face her, she's probably picked up a new strength, and then you have to alter your playstyle to sort of take advantage of whatever weaknesses she has.
And we saw the way that the new soldiers are added in. We played with the Skirmisher and we played with the Reaper.
Right.
How the Skirmisher in particular, I thought was very powerful, because all the different ways that you can act. And how have you revised the existing game to accommodate these new soldiers and to balance? That's a good question. It's very difficult when you add units like this. We added them, and we want them to feel heroic, and so we give them these very, very powerful abilities at the high end. And so we've had to balance that in a lot of ways. One, we've made the late game enemies a lot harder. We've added enemies, obviously, like the Chosen, like the Spectre, that are very difficult units. In addition, the Spectre is new. Can you say anything about the Spectre?
Yeah,
or is that a surprise?
No, the Spectre. So the Spectre is a unit that they basically can. They use stealth basically, and so they can hide, and then they can sneak up on your enemies and make a copy of your soldiers. And then when they do, this sort of dark copy, this sort of shadow version of your soldier, can use all of your soldiers' abilities.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, they can, if they're ranged, they can use their sword. If they're a grenadier, they can launch grenades at you. And so they create this sort of dark copy of your soldier, and they can do that over and over. They can then hide from you after they do that. And so they're a very tricky enemy. And so those things make the game more difficult. But on the other side of things, to level up your faction heroes, you have to buy their abilities. They level up completely differently than core game soldiers. You have to buy them with ability points. And so you kind of have to pick and choose because the more powerful abilities cost more. And so the player has to really say, all right, I really want my Reaper to get the most powerful abilities, but I'm doing that at the cost of, let's say, my skirmisher, perhaps.
Cool. And well, it's clear then that the expansion is adding a ton of content, and it's sort of rebalancing things a little bit and sort of finessing things. What other ways have you approached the game and this expansion to allay some of the or address some players' frustrations from the original? What else is polished rather than extended?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are a lot of things that we've done to sort of change like the base gameplay. So timers, which I personally love, but I think that instead we've added some new forms of timers. So the Lost, this new swarming enemy, they function as sort of a soft timer. So in a mission where the Lost are present, they are going to pressure the player to move forward because they're going to never stop swarming and never stop coming. And so it forced the player to continue on, beat the mission objective because you can't just camp there because the Lost will overwhelm you. We've done things like there's a whole new system where soldiers get tired now, and that allows the player to have a much larger roster of soldiers. So between the fact that you're sending soldiers out on covert actions, they're getting tired, when soldiers form bonds, you always want to send them on missions together. All of a sudden, you have to use a lot more soldiers to play the game effectively. And that gets around the fact that, okay, if you lose a high-level soldier, it doesn't matter. You don't just have an A squad, a B squad. You've got A, B, C, part of a D squad even, because you've got this huge roster of characters that you can pull from. So, yeah, we've even redesigned all the DLC because we had to rebalance all of that to work with this expansion pack, which is huge. And so now there's so much content in the game. A lot of areas we had to go back and touch.
Loads going on. And modders will presumably be able to get their hands on all of this?
Absolutely.
What will modders be able to do with all the new systems?
I'm excited to see. I mean, I think that the addition of the Lost, which is a completely new enemy, that is ripe for modders to get their hands on, create all new mission types using the Lost, can create, I don't know, total conversions using the Lost. So we were joking, honestly, but you could make a XCOM. With the Lost, you could make a total a zombie-style XCOM game, which I think would be awesome to do. The Chosen, obviously, the strengths that the Chosen gain, the sit reps, which are modifiers on missions. They're just, all these elements, of course, are completely exposed to modding, just like we've done with everything else we did in the core game.
Your modding toolkits are really, really extensive. And just to sort of run off a few of the obvious possibilities, would you expect to see custom factions?
Yeah, so a player could definitely do that. Or a modder could definitely do that. But that would be a big commitment because these factions are so huge. I mean, you could definitely do it with our tools, but the factions are far more than just a new class. They are also tons of strategy layer benefits. So you'd have to design a whole new strategy system as well to integrate with that. But it's completely possible to do.
New positive and negative traits for soldiers?
Yes, absolutely. That would be easy to do for modders.
What about deepening the soldier bond system?
Oh, yes.
We had a few people wondering if you could make an XCOM dating simulator or something.
I think you could. I think you could actually that would be great because, again, I've been playing a lot of Persona, and so like I would love to see relationship style, but yeah, you could absolutely make those bonds. So right now the bonds are sort of automatic. You take soldiers on missions, and if they have a high compatibility, then they just automatically they form these bonds. But instead, if it could be like choice-driven dialogue trees, you could put all that in there. I would love it. I'd be the first guy to download that mod.
That sounds awesome. But to be clear, there's no so that we understand how soldier compatibility works. It's random, right?
Yes.
So there's no way to like force two soldiers that you really like to get together.
Well, actually that's not true because there are covert actions that actually you can send soldiers on, which will actually force them to work out their differences, I guess, and change their compatibility rating and get them to a level where they can form a bond. Also, we have things called watershed moments, and these are kind of behind the scenes. But if two soldiers go on a mission and they're the only two to survive, then when they come back, their compatibility is automatically set to high. Or if one of those soldiers is knocked unconscious and another soldier goes, throws them over their shoulder and evacs out with them, then their compatibility is automatically set to high. Because those are moments that you would think, that's like that's a moment that cements a friendship.
You don't come out of that and think, that guy still don't like that guy.
That's right. I don't trust him. I still don't trust him.
All right. Cool. And we hear there's a new challenge mode as well, right?
Yes.
How will that work exactly?
So challenge mode is awesome. It's definitely like one of my favorite features. So the idea is that when you go into challenge mode, you have 30 minutes to complete the challenge. You can only try it once. You can't go back in there. And then there's a lot of different rules to it. So you gain points in a challenge mode for killing enemies, for completing the mission with a certain number of missions, for completing the mission with a certain number of minutes. You get a bonus for all the minutes you completed with. You get it for completing objectives. But the thing is, the point values go down with every turn. So you kind of have to hurry through the challenge to rack up the most points, and you got to play optimally. But at the same time, the challenges can be very difficult. The squads are crazy. We may say like, hey, you get only 3 Reapers is the challenge today, or you get a bunch of aliens now are in your squad, or it's a mix of soldiers and aliens, and so you kind of, this is thrown at you, and you're like, okay, I got 30 minutes, and it's a great way to play. You don't have to launch a huge XCOM campaign experience. It's just like, okay, now I can jump in there, launch the challenge, and play.
Okay.
So yeah, it's really, really fun. It's very different.
And the challenges themselves are, what are they, sort of individual missions?
Yeah, individual missions. So it'll be like, okay, destroy this relay, but you're facing sectopods and you only have like 3 melee rangers or something like that.
Okay.
Now they're not all crazy.
That sounds pretty tough.
Yes, that would be very difficult. But the cool thing about it is then we have leaderboards, and you can watch the replays of everybody else on the leaderboard. Once you've completed it, you can watch the replays of other players who've done it. And even one of the cool elements of challenge mode is that when you're playing it, you'll get these pop-ups as you're playing saying, hey, that sort of tell you about where you're doing compared to everybody else who's played. So it'll say, hey, you completed the objective. Once you complete the objective, it may say like, hey, you completed the objective before 75% of other players, good job. Or hey, you lost a soldier before 80% of other players did, like not so great.
All right.
And so you get this connected feeling to the rest of the world playing the game, and you can compare scores, you can watch replays, and it's just a really quick way to have this sort of like quick dose of XCOM.
Awesome. And then finally, how do you see the new features in War of the Chosen affecting multiplayer? How will they tie into it?
Well, challenge mode is kind of like our sort of big expansion for like global play, basically. But then a lot of these characters, of course, will be available in multiplayer as well.
Right. And soldier bonds, are you able to sort of set 2 people to have a bond in multiplayer so you can access those bond abilities, or will they
that is a great idea that does not exist.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I mean, I guess we're not technically done with the expansion.
Sure.
So you never know, but I don't think so. I don't think people appreciate me saying that back home. They're really, no, it's not possible.
All right.
It's absolutely not possible.
Okay, great. That sounds awesome. Thank you very much for your time. XCOM 2 War of the Chosen is coming out August 29th.
August 29th.
And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Take care.